Hey there, welcome to the Hollywood Gatekeepers YouTube channel. We are going to dive right in today with an amazing clip from an interview that I did with Mr. Jason Mirch from Stage 32. If you have not heard of Stage 32 or you're not a member, you need to dive in and become a member of Stage 32. They are amazing for anyone who wants to work in the film industry. So enjoy this conversation that we had. This is just a bit of the conversation of a longer interview that we did where we talk about the reading process, where we give some really great tips for writers as well as for readers. So definitely dive on in, listen to the interview, and enjoy Jason Mirch from Stage 32.
So that is the challenge of being a development executive, is that it's so hard to find something that hasn't gone through the agency mill, the studio mill, been seen by every other creative executive in town, and to find stuff that's really fresh, you have to go to those places where writers are underrepresented, but have really great stuff. And we've had projects optioned through us. We've had projects go into production through us. We've had writers be hired for studio gigs and land their representatives because they have something that's fantastic that's nobody's seen before. So now, like I said, I'll have executives reach out to me rather than the studios, or rather than the agencies, rather, and say, Jason, find me female-driven thrillers. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, I will make a call for female-driven thrillers among our community. They'll get flooded with scripts and screenplays for consultations and reviews and things like that. And maybe they find something and maybe they don't, but they're providing that service of feedback for the writer as to this is why this is working, or this is why it's not ready for prime time, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Sean's saying here that she loves the mindset about the investing I get to make this. And it's interesting that you say that, Sean, because that, as a reader with the producers that I worked for, that was a pretty common mindset, more common than you would think. Of course, I'm not saying that there aren't the grumbly Hollywood types. There are, but and there aren't jaded people. There are. But in general, we are all movie geeks, and we all get really excited when we come across a good project. It's like finding the hidden gem that we talk about all the time. Like that is the thing of like, oh my God, like ding, 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 we hit it. It's so great when that happens. And Absolutely. Then it's so classic. The story is so classic of telling like, wait, what? There's always the wait, what part. Yeah.
Well, that's so true. And that's one of the things that, we always hear this term, and everybody watching here will inevitably be called this, and it's a term that is meant to be insulting and kind of a term of derision. But the industry gatekeeper, right? How do we get around the gatekeeper? How do we sneak past the gatekeeper? Get around the gatekeeper, and that is the most short-sighted, ill-advised mentality for any writer. You do not want to get around the gatekeeper. You want to become best friends with that gatekeeper, because
which is why we doubled down on the name Hollywood Gatekeepers. That's what
that's exactly right. It is, exactly. No, you're 1,000% right. And the writers that say I want to get around the gatekeeper are inevitably the ones who are not successful in the industry, because everybody, whoever it is, whether it's the assistant running a desk, or whether it's a creative executive, or the vice president that wants to be senior vice president, everybody's looking for that project that they can bring to their company that can elevate them as well. And so, most people think, that's total, BS. They're just there to say no. They're there to say no unsolicited submissions. They're there to just, slam the door in my face. It's not true. They want you to bring it so bad, because that'll make them look great when they find this thing that nobody else has seen. And so,
we say it all the time. We are not here to shut the gate. We're here to kick it open. That's our job as gatekeepers, is how can we kick the gate open for writers? That's our job as readers, is get their script ready so they can kick the gate down. That's why, and I was so thrilled when Hollywood Gatekeepers was available. HollywoodGatekeepers.com. I'm like, I'm in. This is the thing.
It's a great name. It's a great name. Absolutely.
Try to change that mindset about it to having us be an ally and not a wall, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's what you'll find as you move through the industry, is that you're going to need to have those allies, and you're going to want to be making friends with other writers, making friends with filmmakers, making friends with other assistants. It's so important. It's so vital to what your career is going to end up looking like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, and Angie's saying, I'm always very excited to see Jason's name pop up in my emails in the morning, right? Totally. That's the first email I open now. I love
it. It's very kind of you.
ever. Yeah, I wrote to him about that last week. Yeah, totally. Robbins just says, I just joined. It's so awesome.
Oh, good.
Joining, awesome. So when you think about the reading process, like with the reading process at Stage 32, like what do you look for in readers, and what is your kind of take on the reading process?
Absolutely. Well, I think that's why, I mean, what you're doing is so valuable. I mean, it's incredibly important. I'm so glad that everyone here is actually participating and being part of Hollywood Gatekeepers and everything else that you do, because it's essential. You know, ultimately, one, it's a love of film and television. You know, we have to love what we're doing. And I think that we wouldn't be in this business, because it's not an easy business. It's a hard business at every level, at every discipline. It's a hard business. So you have to love it. You have to love it, and not simply just think, oh, I can't do anything else, so I'll do this. You have to have not just a love of film and television, but an understanding of storytelling in general. You have to be a voracious reader of everything. You know, that's scripts and screenplays, that's novels, that's short stories, that's poetry, that all of the things that allow us to see sort of what storytelling conventions are. And you have to educate yourself as to what those storytelling conventions are. And that's not to say that we have to do, you know, paint by number, hard and fast rules. I think one of the biggest misconceptions, and you know, we're dear friends with, you know, with Robert McKee. He's taught for us multiple times. We're dear friends with the Blake Steiner folks, Save the Cat. We're dear friends with a number of those screenwriter organizations, and they would agree with me, and I've said to them directly. Biggest mistake, or I think the biggest thing that writers get hung up on, is following conventions or following these formulas to a point where it starts to become detrimental and to the process, to the creative process. You know, somebody says your inciting incident happens on page 16 instead of 15, or it happens on page 3 instead of 15. So to me, it's always, personally, it's always been understanding the storytelling conventions and why we as audiences, and when I use the term audience, I mean a reader, somebody who's watching it in the theater, you know, what have you, who's ever experiencing what you're putting out there. We inherently know what works in story and what doesn't. We know when something's bumping up, you know, we're bumping up against something. So as a reader, your job is to actually articulate what that is. You don't necessarily have to come with the solution or even a solution. And largely that's not your job either. That's the writer's job. And I think development executives, because we are all creative at some point, we all went through some version of, you know, whether it's a film school or it's reading the books, we're in this business because we want to be creative too. And one of the biggest challenges that development executives have is not trying to solve the problem for the writer, right? So the good development executive will say, or the good reader, the good person giving the note will say, I understand the intention of what you're trying to do here. I understand that this is the nugget or the kernel of the idea that you had in this scene or for this character or in this line of dialogue. It's the execution is where it's flawed. And that might be because you didn't earn that moment yet. It might be because we didn't set that up as a plant early enough, or we set it up too late and paid it off too early, whatever it is. The ability to identify those things and then allow the writer to understand it or experience it in a way that even that they don't feel, for lack of a better term, judged. We want to judge something without being judgmental, and I think that's the big difference, right? So you as a reader, and me as a reader, me as a development executive, we have to read something, understand what the writer was attempting to do. And that takes a knowledge of story, and it takes a knowledge of everything from character to plot progression, narrative, that sort of thing. And then see where it's falling short or why it's falling short. And it takes sometimes, it's not something where you can just kind of glance over, and you can't just skim pages. You have to really dig in and look and say, all right, here's why this was set up too late. Here's why this was paid off too early. Here's why this character would never do what he or she is doing right now. Why would they say that after they've just said this? These sorts of things. But then position it in a way that the writer understands that we're coming from a place of wanting to make this the best it can possibly be.
Absolutely.
Because a writer, because we're all writers, and it's very hard to separate yourself from your idea. And that's what a good reader can do.
Is he amazing or what? So Stage 32 is such an incredible platform. Definitely look in the show notes, sign up for Stage 32. You will learn so much. You will meet so many great people. And he just gives you a tiny example of all of the things that they have going on there. So if this video is fun, if it resonates with you, if you want to learn more about the reading and writing process, just click on subscribe to our channel, hit that bell so that you get notified every time we have a new video about the reading process in Hollywood. If you want to learn more about what it takes to become a reader, you can join me for a free masterclass at hollywoodgatekeepers.com/free masterclass. In that masterclass, I cover all the details of what it takes to become a reader and work with amazing producers like the ones that Jason just talked about and meet people like Jason Mirch. So we will see you in Stage 32, and I will see you in the masterclass.